So at this point, what I'd like to do is introduce Victoria, who's very kindly accepted our invitation to speak about their experiences and her experience of adopting this type of technology. So over to you, if I may, Victoria.
Yeah, no problem. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Lovely. Yeah, well, we've had BoardPacks in place through eShare since 2012. It was probably one of the easiest things I've ever had to implement at board level. We got it in the July of 2012, and our whole subcommittee and boards were all online and working from the September. So it was a very simple process to put in place. It did involve a little bit of just about behaviours, just to start with, in terms of making sure people have their iPads charged up. So that was a joy to begin with. I went round with lots of cables for a couple of months until they got it in their heads they were responsible for their own iPads, which was good. We put in a number of mitigations to make sure that there were plugs and all sorts of things. So there was just a bit of practicalities in terms of moving to a more digital age, but it was a top-down approach. It was led by the board. It was agreed by the board, and they went straight to have iPads from the off. I don't know if anybody knows much about NHS boards, but our non-executive directors are of an older age compared to others on the board, and they took to it like a duck to water. So it was not a problem. I think there was some concern that might be an issue, but everyone seemed to accept it really easily, and it was taken forward. So it being a top-down approach led a culture for the whole organisation that it was okay to sit at a meeting with an electronic device. Of course, we've all had phones and things, and everybody was banning phones in board meetings, but it allowed everyone to understand that this was the way forward and this was the practice for the organisation. It led to a very consistent way of approaching our governance with the access to the iPads. The only reason we went for it was the fact that you could access this on an iPad, and that it made the front end really easy to use for busy directors and the chief exec alike, is that they could just carry it around with them, and there it was, easily accessible. You can go back to previous meetings. There was one time in a board where they asked something about the stroke figures, and the managing director at that point said, hang on a minute, I was at a meeting a week ago which had all that data. He just clicked back, picked that meeting, and resolved that action immediately at the board, because he had access to everything on his iPad, which, with all the PDFs that you get clogging up the emails, they can be 4 megs and everything. So actually the app itself makes life really, really, really simple for busy executives and directors. I think I would say we started with the boards and the board subcommittees, but very, very quickly we've added nearly every single meeting we have in this organisation. We have our executive boards on there. We right down to health and safety committee, infection control committees. They are all on our BoardPacks, and it's actually sort of number 5 on that bullet points there. If it's not on BoardPacks, there's no meeting, and it's very interesting how people go, oh well, I didn't see a meeting on BoardPacks, so I assumed it wasn't going on. So it's actually the culture of the organisation to use BoardPacks. It's very streamlined. It's streamlined for us. If it does happen, there are late papers, people tabling things quite late, and it's very easy to share that a day before. You can load that up. It's not a question of posting it and sending it round. I saw some data on a previous slide there where you were talking about the average board pack being 96.7 pages. I don't know if there is anyone from the NHS on this, but I think our average board pack is 396 pages. So in terms of our look at the saving the money on paper and printing and couriering, administration time, and everything else that goes with it, I don't think I could actually add that up now. I think in the first instance, we definitely produced a convincing argument to reduce the administration time. So it's quite a difficult discussion with our admin staff up here not to recruit to a certain post, because we said you won't need it, because you won't need to be on your hands and knees putting board packs together. That's going to be a thing of the past, and they didn't ever recruit to it. So I think we've, if I look on an annual basis, that's a £25,000 role every year that we've not recruited to. if I look at all the paper and the colour printing, over the years and the extent that we've got this now in place across the organisation, I'm not sure I could even begin to try and figure out how much that's developed. And the efficiency of it is huge. I get asked all the time by consultants to make sure they have access to it. So in terms of clinical engagement, it's not a problem. It's just growing and growing all the time. I just wanted to share a bit at the bottom just about eShare themselves. Is I don't think I have ever had an issue with them that couldn't be resolved within the hour. If there's a little glitch in anything, it's resolved very, very quickly. They listen to feedback and have developed the app and ideas and systems and processes by the users. They listen all the time and welcome that feedback and put that into their next design. So they're always improving. I don't think there's ever been a time it's not been working in the whole time I've had it since 2012. So as an actual tool itself, there's not that time when it hasn't been working or there isn't any opportunity to contact eShare to get it sorted out. They provide training. It's not a problem. We've got Janet Jones. She comes down all the time to sort us out and make sure that it's all working well. I'm very responsive to those needs and wants. But actually, once you've got it, the training is really minimal. The trainer is a half-hour session with somebody at the very most to go through it. It's a very simple process and background, and the apps are very easy to use, and so is the back PC loading of papers and everything. It's all very streamlined. So from an organisational perspective, I don't think I had an event with my chief exec the other day where we had to load up some minutes quite late, and his president, oh my God, thank God for BoardPacks, we can get that loaded and done. And he said he just wouldn't be without it. So I think we've got very much people who I don't think as an organisation we could ever go back to a paper focused meeting. I mean, I'm not saying we never print out a board pack or two for those that might need it, particularly if you're chairing a meeting. Sometimes I think it's to have the agenda printed is one thing, but not the rest of the papers. But they don't get it in colour, and they get it stapled to a photocopier. So it's stapled by the photocopier even. So it's just a minimal impact on administration from this end if people do want it. But overall, I would say that it's been an absolute blessing to the organisation. I find us much more efficient. I find if anyone there is part of any auditing, I find I can access meetings that before you'd have to find who had it on their PC somewhere. No doubt they were on annual leave and they'd got it on their desktop, which that doesn't happen anymore. These meetings are all accessible. You can download them, you can produce the papers, and it's just such a streamlined version of a paper process. So I don't think there's anything more I can say about it, but we've all been very supportive at the L&D and will continue to do so.